So Donald Trump had a rally over the weekend in New Jersey, Wildwood, New Jersey. And as with everything that takes place in Trump world, it was exaggerated and lied about. It's insane that it strains credulity. It absolutely flies in the face of rationality that if indeed 80 to 100,000 people showed up in the very blue state of New Jersey for a Donald Trump rally, they wouldn't need fake photos to prove it. If in fact 80 to 100,000 people showed up, they would be sharing the photos everywhere online as a metric of the success of Donald Trump's upcoming presidential election. That's not the case, though. Roger Stone tweeted this 30-year-old picture from a Rod Stewart concert. Yeah, New Jersey is in play for real Donald Trump. Could Joe Biden draw a crowd like this? Obviously, it was immediately checked by a community note, which read, "This is a photo from a Rod Stewart concert almost 30 years ago. On December 31st, 1994, Rod Stewart performed at the Copacabana Beach in Rio de Janeiro in front of an estimated 3.5 to 4.2 million people." Shameless liars. And again, if 80 to 100,000 people had actually showed up, MAGA world would be sharing those photos nonstop, constantly. But it didn't happen. But it didn't need to have happened for MAGA world to latch on to that because they will believe anything that backs up their particular worldview. It doesn't even bother them that they're just lied to. They're fed lies to repeat. They don't care. They're as stupid as everyone claims for them that they are. Now listen, Donald Trump, there's two moments from Donald Trump's speech that I want to talk about. I'm going to give you the full context here. There are a couple of clips online that are like 20 seconds long, but I want to give you the fuller context. And the first is Donald Trump invoking the name of the late, great Hannibal Lecter, who's a fictional character in the movies, in the universe of Silence of the Lambs. And there's a couple of elements to this that I want to talk about that are very interesting. And it's one, of course, Republicans, Donald Trump especially, completely losing context related to the nuance of what characters were and what role they played in the movie. What Donald Trump is doing here is trying to gin up fear that a cannibalistic, psychopathic, sociopathic maniac like Hannibal Lecter, he's comparing him, that character who was a cannibal, who ate his victims, he's comparing that to migrants coming across the border seeking asylum, immigrants to the country. That's what he's doing. And that's the full context. Here's the clip, and we'll talk about some of the missing context that Donald Trump doesn't understand from the movie.
Because they're taking people from insane asylums and from mental institution. You know what the difference is, right? An insane asylum is a mental institution on steroids. Silence of the Lambs. Has anyone ever seen a Silence of the Lambs? The late, great Hannibal Lecter. He's a wonderful man. He oftentimes would have a friend for dinner. Remember the last scene? Excuse me, I'm about to have a friend for dinner as this poor doctor walked by. I'm about to have a friend for dinner. But Hannibal Lecter, congratulations, the late, great Hannibal Lecter. We have people that are being released into our country that we don't want in our country, and they're coming in totally unchecked, totally unvetted, and we can't let this happen. They're destroying our country, and we're sitting back, and we better damn well win this election, because if we don't, our country is going to be doomed. It's going to be doomed.
One, it's just gross. It is xenophobic. It is verging on racist. It's everything you would expect from Donald Trump to incite, to excite, to titillate his audience of racists. Interesting, though, that Donald Trump is like, oh, and the poor doctor, completely losing any media, any critical eye on art. that Chilton or whatever that doctor's name was in the Lord of the Rings, in Silence of the Lambs, was maybe the most evil character in the movie. He was a psychopath, a man who delighted in the torture and the mistreatment of his patients. He was a bad guy. He wasn't, and the poor doctor. It's Donald Trump lionizing the wrong characters, having sympathy for the wrong characters. The other moment that I want to talk about is, again, Donald Trump getting this NATO thing wrong. Time after time after time, after it's been explained to him, after he campaigned in 2016, he was wrong about it. While president of the United States, he was wrong about it. I don't know if it's that he doesn't understand how NATO works, or he just wants to confuse the issue for his loyal yet stupid audience who doesn't care what the facts are on the ground. And again, here's Donald Trump bragging about him versus our allies, him setting our allies up to fail, him threatening our allies with attack from his pal, Vladimir Putin. Watch this, and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
So I said, no, you have to pay your bills. And one of the presidents from one of the countries, 28 countries at the time, 28 countries, only 7 of them were paid up. The rest of them didn't pay. And the United States was paying much more than they should have, like by about 10 times. We were carrying NATO. So we get screwed in trade and we carry NATO. And I said, if you don't do this, we got problems. And one of them stood up and said, sir, do you mean to tell me that if I'm attacked in this very big country, if I'm attacked as a country by Russia, you will not defend me? I say, are you delinquent? He said, well, let's say I was. I said, if you're delinquent, I would not protect you. And you know what happened? And the press killed me because they said, oh, you've treated us so terribly. They respect you more. They like me more than they like other people. They understand. They can't believe they got away with it. For years and years, they got away with it. South Korea, we're paying for their military. We have 42,000 soldiers there. They pay us like nothing. I changed that.
One, that is almost certainly a moment that did not happen. He keeps repeating this thing. Very unlikely that that took place. Secondly, even if it did, that's not how NATO works. We're not paying for their military. NATO, there's an agreement that all countries will fund their militaries at a certain percentage of their own GDP. And then he says, and we have to pick up the slack, and we have to pay for their militaries. We pay nearly $1 trillion a year, well above what is expected or required or agreed upon by NATO nations. We do it voluntarily. And secondly, Donald Trump completely discounts the strategic and military benefit of us having bases in North Korea, in Germany, in Japan. Those countries likely would be fine if we left. It is to our advantage that we are there. It makes deployments quicker and easier and cheaper to have military bases across the globe. Do I agree with it? It's hard to say. On the whole, we don't need to be everywhere we are. But is it a strategic advantage for our military? Plainly stated, yes, absolutely. Whether that's wrong or right, that's a conversation for another time. But Donald Trump is acting as though we need to be isolationists, only have military bases here in the United States. And then when a war breaks out, when a conflict breaks out, then where are we? Those are questions that are not asked. They're not asked by him. They're not asked by MAGA world. They don't care. This is a cult of personality. This is a literal religious cult at this point. And Donald Trump is the leader, and whatever he says is adored. We are in a situation where we are on the brink of having this maniac dismantle the administrative deep state in the United States and supplant it. Career professionals who know how this government works, and he's going to put his own army tens of thousands of people who are loyal to him, not to the Constitution, not to some fealty to the United States and our values. They're going to be loyal to Donald Trump, that whatever he says, like when he drew on the map and said, no, also Alabama or whatever, they'll go along with it. He's going to be putting rank and file MAGA idiots in the government. He's going to usher in authoritarianism in the United States. His plan to be a dictator on day one will come to fruition. His plan to cancel, to terminate the Constitution of the United States will come to fruition because he will be the law of the land, not the Constitution, not law and order. It's whatever gets him out of trouble and away from the prying eyes of the IRS and a number of other different entities that would see him do the right thing. You think he's going to follow the edicts of the Supreme Court that he now lauds? Not a chance. Anyway, what do you think? I'd love to know. You can leave a comment below. We can talk about it there. That helps YouTube to show this content, introduce this content to new viewers. You can also call and leave me a voicemail, 714-576-4054. Of course, you can email me, as always, daily@dollemore.com. Please consider supporting this work, helping me make these videos. Click the join button below, become a channel member for $2 a month. You can go to my Patreon page, patreon.com/IDoubtItPodcast. You can follow me on social media. I'm at Dollemore, and I will see you next time. Until then, be genuine and take care of one another.